Yes. True Texas. It could. Is it almost the end of it? Josh, you have to get back on when your video's over. Over? It is? Okay, lots on. Okay, we're going to get started. Jim Brown, David Rogers. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Monica Brown. I'm the volunteer director here at True Texas Project, and we have a few other local volunteers in the room. Zane Hatch is one, and then we have, yes, Johnny, and your wife is right there. Yes. Tell me your name again.
Jamie.
Jamie and Johnny. Of course, I know that. And then there's also Shannon Wolf right there. Dr. Shannon Wolf. And we have a few other volunteers who aren't here tonight. And David Rogers. So these are strong activists. People who are very active about supporting True Texas. And there's we got an elected official or almost elected official tonight. That's awesome. Okay. Okay. So I just want to welcome you. Good evening, Brandon. Do y'all know Brandon Hall?
Yes.
Okay, he's for State Board of Education. When we get to local announcements, I'm going to hand you the mic and have you introduce yourself, okay? And take a few minutes. I think you're the only person that's on a ballot, so you can have a little tiny bit extra time.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. And then, of course, he'll be here afterwards to speak with you. So the very first thing we're going to do is do the Pledge of Allegiance. And would you like to lead us in the pledge,
Sure.
Brandon? Okay. We'll do both of them. And Victoria will put it up on here. Okay.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Awesome. What do we say? Oorah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now we're going to do an announcement video. Then we'll do local. Go ahead.
Hello, True Texans. I am hoping our video this month will be an encouragement to you. And by encouragement, I mean a kick in the pants to get up and do something. First of all, that general election is right around the corner. And if you are not already helping to impact the results, now is the time to get going. Are you not sure what to do? Well, here are two ideas. First, you can sign up through your county elections office to help work at the polls throughout early voting and on election day. Now that's a lot of days to cover. We must have eyes and ears at every polling location. In fact, this job is so important, you will even be paid to do it. They need election clerks and election judges all across the state, especially in Democrat areas. Hey, it's a lot harder to cheat when someone is eyeing you suspiciously, right? Second, you can help get out the vote. Once early voting starts, we'll be able to see who has voted and who hasn't. This is the perfect opportunity for volunteers to flood your county GOP office, to make calls and send texts, reminding people to vote, helping them figure out where to go, and answering any questions they may have. Now, we have enough Republican voters to win in November if they show up and vote. Our job is to make sure they do. Now, nobody likes having to take the time to do extra work, but well, it's kind of what we're here for, to win elections and bring about positive change to our government. If we all do it together, it's a lot more fun. And speaking of having fun, I wanted to call attention to a conversation I had last month with some True Texas friends. Some were lamenting the lost days of yesteryear, when people had closer friendships, interacted more as families, enjoyed their neighbors, and supported each other as they did life together. In many ways, I've enjoyed exactly this through True Texas Project. You may know my daughter was only 2 when we started, and now she's 17. Y'all have cheered her on, offered advice, and supported her and our family in too many ways to count. Your friendship has been absolutely vital to us. Well, we think everyone needs people like this in their lives, and that's why we hold so many social activities within True Texas Project. You've got to have like-minded people you can trust in your life, and those are hard to find. Well, we've already done the hard work for you. You just need to show up and get to know them. Come to our meetings, yes, but make a point to get to our social events too. There are so many. We have coffees and lunches and dinners and happy hours and sporting events, holiday parties, even dog parties. We do this for you, and we think you'll be glad to participate. Check out all we have going on at truetexasproject.com/events. And this is probably a good time to remind you that our most fun party of the year, our Dueling Pianos interactive Christmas show, is being held in downtown Grapevine, the Christmas capital of Texas. Come laugh and sing with us and celebrate the most wonderful time of the year. So, speaking of making an effort to get together, this month's Volunteer of the Month has gone the extra mile. We're recognizing Jerry Ward, co-director of our Hill Country satellite. In September, he invited more guests to a TTP meeting than anyone else on our leadership teams across the state. Not only that, he started block walking, knocking on doors to make sure more neighbors know about the incredible...
A couple announcements and I'll bring up right. And then Comanche, but you count because so we cover ERAF, we cover Comanche, we cover Johnson, and Hood, and Somerville. So when you came in from other places, totally welcome anytime. Keep coming if you want to. But it's kind of fun to have people from around that aren't even in this service area. It's a whole state of Texas, of course, so that's what we're doing, but it's fun to have y'all here. Okay, so I am Shannon Wolf, and I am a precinct chair here, Precinct 211, and I was recently appointed a Get Out the Vote Committee chairperson. Well, I like grassroots. How about you guys? I really like grassroots. And so what we've been doing is knocking on every single door that we can in Hood County, not just the hard R's. Have y'all ever heard of the hard R's before? Well, I am one, so I like these people, but there are other people that don't know that they need to be at the polls voting and just how vital it is. Guys, I don't worry about Hood County as much because we are red. We are a red county, and this is good. But there are counties in Texas that are blue, and our votes need to overwhelm the ones that are Dallas County, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, those places. We need to get out the vote in a massive kind of way. So wherever you are, I'm going to encourage you to call your friends, call your neighbors, talk to them, tell them who you're voting for and why they should vote. One of my major concerns, not just for president, he is a major concern that we get him in office. And of course, Senator Cruz, I want him in office. But our judges, do you guys know that the Democrats are really pushing to flip the Texas Supreme Court? Did you know that? Yeah. What about the Texas Appellate Court? Can you imagine the damage that they will do if they are able to do that? So it's not just voting for president, and it's not just voting for our senators. They need to go all the way down the ballot, and we need to be ready to explain why it's important to vote all the way down the ballot and choose good conservative candidates. I also think it's time for us to be looking ahead to next year and the next year, and really trying to bring up people who are going to be our next leaders, and trying to that have information. And these are vital, because there really are people that are torn between candidates, or they're not sure about an issue that they're going to be voting on. And sometimes they don't even know that there are judges on the ballot this time. And so they're a little taken aback. Wait, I don't know who those judges are. Well, let me help you out with that. And these are people who are under the tent, who are ready to influence a voter before they get into the polls, which is not electioneering. That is quite okay for you to do that. We have 10 locations here in Hood County, and we need help. It's impossible for someone to cover all of these shifts, and I just need help doing that. You can sit down, you can have a good time, you can bring snacks and all kinds of things, you can visit with your neighbors, but would you please be ready to give an answer on why conservative candidates are the ones we need to put into office? And if you would do that, and if you are here in Hood County, please, please, please come see me, because I've got a place for you, and I've got places for you to sign up. If you're not in Hood County, you need to go find the people who are in charge of this or who are involved in this, and please, please be willing to give them an afternoon or a morning or a little piece of your time where you can be involved in telling people why it's so important to vote for these conservative candidates. Okay.
Okay,
That's it.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Okay. Bo French was saying they have a secret weapon, and it's a voter guide. So I encourage you to create voter guides if you don't have one. And if you're with True Texas Project and you have your own group, you can have a home group even, then you get a committee together and you help True Texas identify who the true strong conservatives are in your area. Okay? And so you can, and when she said door to door, because what happens when you get involved is you'll get a candidate and they'll say, well, here's my push cards, will you hand them out? And then let's say after you get to a certain point, you run out of push cards. So you're like, well, now what do I do? I don't have anything else to share. So we've done things, this is Melanie Graff, but what we've done is we'll even print up our own. We'll write something up and go door to door and share that, because it's the least expensive thing we can do. So we share it on media, we share it through email, we share it through text, and then if we run out of these, then we have this particular person, Melanie Graff. She is on a We the People voter guide, and she's endorsed, which means we have 100% agreement on our leadership team to say endorsed. And so there's another one that's True Texas Project, and they do the same thing. They will, like Brandon Hall, you were endorsed. Shannon Wolf was endorsed. You were, Zane?
I was too new.
Okay, so he was not endorsed, but his name was on there. And he missed his race by how many?
100.
100 votes. So he hasn't quit, though. He's still weak. In my mind,
I won.
He
because
won.
I'm engaged.
That's right. And truthfully, we have another one like that. He lost by 10 votes for precinct chair. And then this week we had Senator Bob Hall was here. If you've never heard him speak, oh, that was my first time. It was amazing. Very much a strong Christian man who said, look, I'm listening to him first and then the people, which I thought was fantastic. He comes from a Judeo-Christian background, and he's a strong constitutional conservative. And he said the two most important races are precinct chairs and then school board locally. Because really out of this pool of local, as you elect people, then they tend to move up and go to higher offices. And what we found is if we get someone in office and they're not that great and they get empowered and we don't get them out, they keep moving. And it can create bigger problems for people. So the beauty, though, is you can endorse the ones who have 100% endorsement, and then you can remove that endorsement if, so Mr. Hall, this is your chance to come up here. He's going for State Board of Education. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but our heart is to always endorse him, but we're going to hold him accountable, right? And do our best to support him in prayer and everything, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Thank you. Here's Brandon Hall for State Board of Education.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Brandon Hall, running for State Board of Education District 11. This is my second day in a row here in Hood County, so it's great to be with y'all. And then if you're in Johnson County, you're probably in my district too. Y'all are from Johnson County, right? Awesome. Are you from near Cleburne?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you should be in my district. So of course, the State Board of Education is such an important position, and I wish every young person, I started in public school, and I'm actually a homeschool graduate. My mom pulled me out of public school, even that many years ago because she saw some issues. And I wish every student had the opportunity to get a good education and uplifting environment. But the fact is, so many students in Texas do not have that opportunity. And more than half of our students in Texas cannot even read at grade level. And for me, and if I know a couple of y'all might have been there yesterday whenever I was able to speak, but for me, this is not a political issue. This is a human issue. I'm a pastor in Springtown. I've been a youth pastor, and I've worked with youth for a long time, relatively, right? I'm still young, I get that. But I've worked with youth, and one thing that I've seen is what a life-changing experience that a good education can be. We have a young man in our church right now. We're trying to work with him because he was able to graduate high school and can barely read a menu this May. And so we're trying to work with him. But just think of how many of these students are falling through the cracks, and we're really failing our students. We're either 36th or 38th in education, depending on who you ask in Texas. And to me, that is unacceptable. And on top of that, the education standards are not where they need to be. And on top of that, we see far too many examples of woke garbage in our schools, of obscene materials in our schools. And it's funny, the craziest experience that I've had running for SPOE is that you'll tell people we have problems with the education system, and you'll actually have people argue with you and tell you that we don't, or tell you that we don't have concerning books in our libraries. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir here. We did an audit on our school library in our schools at Springtown, which is if you don't know where Springtown is, it's just north of Weatherford. It's a small little town, extremely conservative, almost 90% Republican in Springtown. We went through the school library in Springtown and found books that were just flat out pornographic, as I know that you have here. And so the most concerning part was you can look at those books on the website and you can see that a student has those books checked out. And some of those books that I was looking at, a student had that book in their possession at the time. It wasn't just sitting on the shelf at the library. And so the time for excuses, the time for complacency is completely over. When you look at the makeup of the State Board of Education, there's 10 Republicans and 5 Democrats you're going to have on your ballot. Of course, President Trump's race is important. Senator Cruz's race is important. All love your vote. But those local school board races, we need solid conservative fighters. And we need to never accept complacency and never accept the fact that we would have obscene materials in our schools, especially right now. I represent a very diverse area because I have 6 counties. Almost 2 million people live in my State Board of Education district. And so, Arlington is much different from Glenrose. And so, you could more see some of these problems happening in like Dallas or Austin or Houston, but Granbury should not be struggling with obscene books in their library. This is an extremely conservative community, but your school board doesn't reflect that right now. And so I would encourage you not just go out and vote for those school board candidates, but help them, stand at the polls for them, knock some doors for them. But I'll wrap up there, and I want to thank you all so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate the True Texas Project and just your uncompromising stance, and I appreciate what Mrs. Brown said. Please hold me accountable. I'll be happy to get you my cell phone number, my email address, and let me know what your thoughts are as we step into this. Of course, I'm looking forward to the election on November 5th. This State Board of Education district normally goes about 30 points Republican. And so we're looking forward to a really good, solid victory. And thank you to everybody who already has supported the campaign as well.
I feel bad because I kind of broke a rule with candidates in True Texas Project. What you do is you give them 30 seconds and then you take the microphone. But I thought, we have just one tonight, so we could give him, and plus I know who he is and everything. And the way Julie does it You can come up here and say everything you want to say, and she doesn't have any problem countering you if she knows different. So it's best to tell the truth when you're here, and he does. So anyway, I just wanted to say a couple more things. One of the secret weapons I said was the voter guide. That you can do that. You can have ministerial alliances that put together voter guides. You can have a small group of people who put together voter guides. So it's very good and it's very helpful to people to have a voter guide. Another thing is to use your video by video in meetings. And if you find there's trouble, whether it's if your sweet spot is the commissioner's court or it's school board or whatever, if you're recording, I can't tell you how powerful that's been this year for me to record so that the truth could be told. And if
like I was going to make that one recently, but last minute I couldn't make it.
Yes.
I was able to watch it because you were there.
Yes, and I have recorded quite a few of the hospital district board meetings that are at noon on Friday. So how many people can go to that?
Right.
Some of the school board meetings were at 5 o'clock. Well, how do you get off work and get there if you're working? So it's actually, some of it's counterproductive for people to get involved, but if you record it and they take an interest, then that can help them turn on and maybe they're your next candidate. So the other thing is to attend meetings, and a lot of this is intimidating. Really what pushed me into it was the porn in schools. If I hadn't have done that, I was off in my own world doing my own thing, serving the community. I really was like, hey, I'm not against the public school. I'm really not. I might choose it one day if I need it. I'm just going to take it year by year. Now that I know what I know, I don't think I could choose that in this town. You'd have to probably break my arm or something. But anyway, there's really nice people here, though. I don't want to bash the teachers. It's just they really are, even the teachers. One of the teachers told me, I never took my students to the library because I knew what was in there. Well, 18 years of bad stuff, and it was so vile. And they acted like, they tried to pretend it was like the emperor with no clothes. He was, how the emperor runs around naked and everyone goes, oh, nice clothes, and he has no clothes on. It was just like that. And so it was so sad. It would have been so refreshing for them just to say, yikes, we're sorry, let's fix this. We're talking thousands of books. Why not get rid of 1,000 of them and replace them with good ones? So, but if you could attend the meetings. And here in Granbury, we've had the last meeting, we only had notice of it midday on Saturday, I think, and we had about 12 people show up. So that's a pretty good number, but it's still a little bit discouraging, and you hope for more, and you hope more people will be brave enough to speak so you're not the only one speaking. But at the same time, if that's the path you have, it's okay, right? It's okay. So that one, and then she mentioned the election tent, so we're doing that here. And then I wanted to show you, like I said, the packets. The little bags are ordered on Amazon. The printing is very inexpensive, especially if you do black and white. And the voter guides can be done in such a way that they're a half sheet. And we put one on the front and we put True Texas on the back. So we're able to keep rolling on our block walking, and we're not stopping just at select doors, which is what we were doing before. And the problem with doing it the other way is just that you have a scarcity mindset. I only have so many push cards for this person, and either they don't give them to you and now you can't walk, or they finally give them to you, get it done, and then you're stuck because there's nothing more to share. But if you make your own things, and if you can put in your own words why you're for these people right here as well, that we're out of order big time. So I just wanted to share that with you, encourage you. I will say too, in Hood County, we ended up with 45 delegates that went to San Antonio, and that was more than even Tarrant County. So that's kind of how stirred up we are here. I didn't even go. My family didn't go. And we had 25 backups. And then meetings like this have been packed, especially the conservative Republican club here in town. So they have been packed. So people are attending, they're listening, they're learning. And there are some of the men and women too, but specifically several men have shown up, and they're walking door to door, passing this stuff out. David is one of them. I won't say the other names of the other people, but they're literally going door to door, hundreds, and doing this. And I've got a couple of girls who are not here tonight, but they've done the same thing, just door to door, going to neighbors, being brave enough to talk. And truly, it's not so bad. Every once in a while, someone will be unkind to you. Even Miss Wolf yesterday or the day before, her Property Owners Association kicked her out and said she can't do what she's doing. And she's like, well, you need to talk to your attorney, and I'll have mine call you. And both attorneys went, oh yeah, they're totally free to do this. And so that was nice. The air was cleared, and she can go right back, and she did today, went and dominated some more to make sure, yes, to make sure her neighbors get the message. And they love getting voter guides. They really do. I know I always did, because I was like, well, I'm going to vote. and I need some help. And so I like to get a couple of them and compare them. Yes.
And also, you do make sure to do your voter guides in such a way that people can take them with them. There are certain rules and guidelines to follow with voter guides to take into the voting polls.
So what they're saying now is you cannot take in like a candidate advertisement. That's what these push cards are, okay? So we did two things. We happen to have an old copy machine, so we copy sample ballots. But your election clerk will also print these for you. So you can literally give someone a sample ballot on yellow paper. And they can print it on a smaller, shorter piece of paper.
Do you want to speak into the fact, Monica, that we're doing this basically as what we call concerned citizens, so that you're actually outside waiting on the Republican Party or waiting for all the donations to get to PACs. And there's plenty of people that are willing to donate.
Every one of the tents will have sample ballots because that's what they need to mark, and you're going to help them. You're not going to mark it for them, but you're going to put that in their hands along with the voter guide. And there is a Republican voter guide, but I won't go into the politics of it, but there are some things that were left off of it. So True Texas Project picked that up.
And there are even local candidates that aren't listed. They chose not to list the school board and city council. Now, city council ended up not even having an election because people stepped up and we didn't have opponents, so they got the office. But we wanted people to be able to see. And I like the endorsement part of not endorsed. So if someone's not endorsed, it doesn't mean, it could mean like in Zane's case, he was brand new. He didn't have a record for us to say one way or the other. So when someone has a strong conservative record, then you can endorse them, and that way at least people know, wait, we're not trying to tell you what to do, we want you to think through each of these. So you'll even see, if you look up further, oh, those are my notifications. It's okay, I'm sure it's my computer.
Facebook.
You may see someone up here at the very top of this guide, and if you want one, I'll send it to you through email. You just have to email me. But you'll see, that's funny. It'd be like if we did not endorse Trump. Well, he's endorsed, but if we didn't, you'd be like, why? Well, okay, there might be a reason, but he's still the better of the other, right? That's how you look at these guys. But it's very powerful, and it's very helpful, and it helps people to think, and that's the main thing. We want them to think. So real quick, and then we're going to give up the evening to our special guest. There is a True Texas podcast. I don't know if anybody's listened to that. Anybody hear it yet? They have a podcast. Those are great. And this time they're talking about the kind of men that we need. And I haven't even heard it yet. But everything else I've heard has been fantastic. They have one on taxes where they talked about no new revenue rate, which I have been pounding that into the ground here. And our commissioner's court actually did it. Our school board did not. But it is happening across the state where they're not raising the tax rate on people. Not here in Hood County yet, but we're working on it. And then you can donate online. Okay, there is a QR code, and there are no fees here, but the room does cost. And so if you will donate online, and we will pass the hat. Is it time to pass the hat? I think that's where we're at right now. Yes? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so we have a hat. Anybody have a hat? Oh, we have a basket. Let's pass that around real quick. We always need volunteers, so keep that in mind. And then while we're passing the hat, we're going to do this how-to video, and then I'm going to introduce the speaker, and he's got all of our attention the rest of the evening. So you can go ahead.
By now, virtually everyone knows that the border is a disaster, but the scale is much larger than most realize due to the games the current administration is playing to suppress the publicly advertised numbers. Since January 2021, we have had over 10.5 million nationwide border encounters, and Customs and Border Protection have reported about 2 million known gotaways. That brings our total to over 12 million. But this doesn't even tell the whole story. The reported numbers also do not include the unknown gotaways, the illegal aliens who cross our border without ever being detected. On a recent X space, former President Donald Trump told Elon Musk that his sources estimate that as many as 19 million illegal and inadmissible aliens have entered the country during the Biden presidency. And with the revival of the CHNV program coming soon, this number could easily eclipse 20 million when the next president is sworn into office. So what can we do in light of the fact that we have as much as doubled the illegal alien population in the United States in a single administration? We can break it down to 3 categories: state policy, federal legislation, and presidential executive actions. Let's start with what the state of Texas can do, both to secure the border and to make our state harder to live and work in for illegal aliens. Since 2021, the state of Texas has allotted nearly $10 billion for border security operations, primarily through Operation Lone Star. However, in that time, we have still seen record border crossings. And even as border apprehensions in Texas have decreased in recent months, the Biden administration is still allowing hundreds of thousands of inadmissible aliens to enter through ports of entry through the aforementioned humanitarian parole programs, bogus asylum claims, and other means. Governor Abbott has declared an invasion pursuant to Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution, which gives our state what are effectively emergency war powers to directly interdict illegal border crossings and return apprehended illegal aliens back across the border. However, we have not seen these types of operations, and the state does not currently have the resources to apply these powers at scale. And so, the state of Texas should create a dedicated border protection unit to consolidate border operations under a single chain of command and get personnel to the border region permanently. Under Operation Lone Star, we are paying for endless hotels and per diem. This would change with the Border Protection Unit situated in the border region and make these operations much more cost-effective. Under Abbott's invasion declaration, this unit would have the statutory authority to directly repel the invasion at the Texas border. Last session, House Bill 20 would have done just that, but it was killed on the floor of the Texas House by Speaker Dave Phelan through a point of order. With the change in leadership in the Texas House, however, this bill has a good chance of passing. The state of Texas must also focus on internal enforcement. We should pass a mandatory E-Verify law to make it more difficult for illegal aliens to gain employment. Florida did it last year. Senate Bill 1621 by Lois Kolkhorst was proposed in the 88th legislative session, but it came up just short of passing the Texas Senate due to strong opposition from the agricultural lobby and others. Its companion bill went nowhere in the Texas House. Finally, the state should eliminate taxpayer-funded handouts, including in-state tuition for illegal aliens, and reinstate third safe country policies with other nations in Latin America, as well as the migrant protection protocols, better known as Remain in Mexico. He can immediately direct DHS to fully enforce federal immigration law and institute expedited removals of those who cross the border illegally. President Trump has promised the largest deportation operation in American history, and this is a necessity to undo the damage done under the current administration. But make no mistake, this will be tremendously politically costly and will require constant pressure by conservative activists to convince elected officials to stay the course. Congress and the Senate should immediately pass H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act of 2023, to fully fund border wall construction, mandate E-Verify nationwide, close legal loopholes that force the federal government to practice catch and release, and prevent abuses that have taken place under the Biden administration. All of these policy changes will come with significant opposition, not only from Open Borders Democrats, but from the big business and agricultural lobbies that have traditionally supported establishment Republicans. That means you, the grassroots, have to remain vigilant. By the time the 89th session convenes in January, your state representative and state senator should know who you are. Bring the legislative priorities passed by RPT to them and demand that they pledge to support them. Call your congressmen and Senators Cruz and Cornyn and tell them they should be pushing the policies in H.R. 2, not a grand bargain amnesty for a security plan. The fight isn't over on November 5th. Because of the opposition we face, we need to be prepared to fight for years to secure our nation's future.
Okay, so we have Brandon Exford here from Lifewise, and we're going to give him our full attention. I don't know, you have everything you need, right? I'll just say, we were just talking to him tonight about communities in schools. That's a program that's here in Granbury, and it is, the manual is a DEI manual, DEI all over it. And you go, well, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, you really need to take time and look at what it is. It's far beyond what you imagine. If you need information, I'll share it with you. But I want you to give all your attention to Lifewise Academy. Brandon Exford, are you ready? And his wife Chelsea's here. They've got a table back there and all kinds of goodies. We have True Texas Project things as well. It's fine.
Is that showing up on the screen there? You know, out here like you leading the charge. It's not easy. And so I recognize that. And I rarely walk into a room with such an amazing audio-visual squad. I mean, come on. Victoria's killing it. Zoe, my videographer over here. And then Joshua, who was, I don't know, entertaining me, I guess. You know, he's like, yeah, he's the green room entertainment. Not laughing at any of my jokes. But I'm not a quitter, so I'm going to keep going. And it's great to have Mr. Hall in here. We share the same name, Brandon and Brandon. That has to count for something. So very excited for you. And then we have people that support Lifewise from around different areas. We have Jackie Pinkerton. We have Joy Campbell. I'm excited for you both to be here. So yes, I'm with Lifewise, and we're providing Bible education for public school students during school hours. Okay? This is not a before school program. This is not an after school program. Those are amazing, by the way, and we partner with them. Kids leave school in the middle of the school day. They learn about the Bible, and then they are returned back to school. Could you imagine what this country would look like if hundreds of thousands of kids, if not millions, had a biblical worldview? So what are we going to cover? We're going to cover why we exist, what we do, how we do it, where we've been, where we're going, and what it will take. So why do we exist? Well, let me start off with my personal why. Every speaker has to share their personal why, but mine is short. These are my children. My oldest son is 18. He's at a Christian college in Indiana. Yes, we're in the cornfields. So, and we don't know what the sun looks like all the time there. So we're happy to be here in Texas. Josiah's 18. My daughter Avery's 14. My son Logan is 16. And my youngest son Aiden is 12. And then my wife Chelsea is in the back. Why are they my personal why? So I was raised that circumstances are not going to go your way. Things are going to crumble all around you sometimes. And if you turn to Jesus and you pray, the circumstances may not change, but man, the joy you'll feel, the hope that you'll feel is real. And so I've done that my entire life. Well, I've trained my kids to do that. And so now when they struggle, they do the same thing. Well, we have our suicide among 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. These are kids. I don't know what you were doing when you were 10, but I was not thinking about whether life was worth living or not. These kids are, right? They don't have the hope of Jesus when they are in those moments. And at the same time, we're seeing all-time lows in things like church attendance, professions of faith, biblical literacy. Come on, those have to be connected. Like I know they are. So we got to get the gospel to them. We got to get the word of God to them. But here's the thing, over 80% of kids, they never step foot in a church. They don't set foot in your churches. Matter of fact, out of the remaining 20%, a large chunk go once, maybe twice a year. So they're not coming to us. But 90% of kids are in a public school. All right? So let's go to them. If they're not coming to us, let's go to them. But that's impossible, Brandon. It's public school. Yeah, I know. Much like Brandon Hall back here, I've spent a lot of my life in ministry, youth ministry, and more. And my goal was to reach kids with the gospel in public schools. It was just one big shut door. Well, I was a little embarrassed to find out that for over 70 years, doing what we do has been legal. It's called release time religious instruction. In 1952, the Supreme Court ruled that students can leave school in the middle of the school day to learn about the Bible, to learn about Jesus, and go back to school as long as 3 criteria are met. Off school grounds, privately funded, and it's completely optional to parents. So just think about the impact that this could have. And the 3 key words is during school hours. Again, we work with Unity with all other programs. We are bonded. But when it's during school hours, you don't have the hurdles of transportation. Parents can't get their kids back and forth. And things like extracurriculars. I mean, come on, sports. I mean, you guys live in Texas. Sports rule the day. But during school hours, they're all in the seats. They are all in the seats. So we honestly consider this the greatest missed opportunity of the American church to reach the next generation with the hope of Jesus Christ. Matter of fact, 29 states have laws on the books that support this very ruling, and yet no one knows it exists. But they do now. So where have we been? Well, we learned about this in ancient history 7 years ago. Ancient history, 2017. Yeah. Well, guess what? In year 1, 60% of the entire student body. By year 3, 95% of the entire school were leaving once a week. As you can see, the schools in the background, that the community bought a house, they renovated it to a secure educational facility, laid down a sidewalk, and they were running multiple classes a day. All of these kids experiencing Jesus, and that community has changed. They are now serving middle school and high school as well. So we found out about that through them, and then they came to us in 2018, what we call the year of the riddle. We name our years. It's fun that way, I guess. And they said, here's the riddle. If this is legal, and it's unambiguously legal, I mean, come on, the highest court in the land, and if it's impactful, I don't know if I got 95% on a test in school, forgive me for that, let alone got 95% of any group to mobilize around anything, then why doesn't every community have it? What's going on? Communities like this, look at all the fast food places, restaurants, YMCA, libraries, churches. I mean, it's there. Why isn't it everywhere? So we started doing our research, and we discovered that 90.3% of school districts in America had no one doing this at all for over the 70 years. Why? Well, let's think about it right now. What are all the boxes we would have to check if it was just us in this room? Who are we going to talk to in the school system? What curriculum are we going to use? How do we market to people that may believe in what we believe in but don't believe in what we believe in? What about a teacher during the day? Are we going to have to pay that teacher? And then if we do, is that payroll processing? And surely the teacher can't be alone with kids, right? So is that background checks? And then we need volunteers. And then where are they going in the first place? All right. And then what about liability insurance in case a kid hurts themselves? More and more and more. I could go on and on. IT and systems. There's just too many barriers. That's why it's never taken off in over 70 years. But in 2018, we asked a very important question. What if someone came along and removed all of the barriers? Would people like you, because it has to be a grassroots movement, people that care about the kids in their backyard, would you mobilize on behalf of the kids in their backyard? So we said, let's find out. So we were founded in 2018 to be a plug-and-play replica. You can find and follow him now and have his presence here and forever. We will not compromise on that. I cannot tell you the investments we have missed out on because we will not water down that message. We will die on that hill. Number two, we are character focused. I'm sure Mr. Hall knows the language of the schools. They want character in their schools. They really do. We have to understand that. Here's the thing. We know that the gospel makes what? Character come alive in the first place. And so we believe we have the best character education on the planet. It's the gospel of Jesus. And we are local church driven. We are not going to be a church. We want to equip church as well to do the ministry and fulfill the Great Commission. We do that by being plug and play. Everything is out of the box, turnkey, whichever phrase you want to use, right? And we are for the nation. You're going to call us crazy in a bit with our goals. But I'm telling you, we believe the gospel is for all. And then finally, excellence. This one's a little near and dear to our heart. Listen, we believe we represent the King of the universe. And he is excellent. So we want to do it to the best of our ability, not mediocre. The best of our ability. And number two, listen, schools and school boards and superintendents, they have all these different ideas coming their way. And if we're just mediocre and we're not thought out and community supported and excellent, they're going to be like, thank you for sharing. Have a nice day, and shut the door and go, nope. So we want to respect them and bring that excellence to the table. But anybody can write something down on paper. We actually had to get active and see what was going to happen. So we entered 2019, the year of proof of concept, or the year of the guinea pig, I like to call it. We found 2 brave school districts in Ohio that were ready to launch. And boy, oh boy, were we amazed. We first launched in Ayersville, Ohio. A gentleman donated that basketball court. That's the school. The kids walk just feet off the school grounds to a beautiful facility. Over 70% participation of the entire school. We had families taking their kids and from the school they were in and putting them in Ayersville. And we're like, hold on, we're coming. It's our first one. It's amazing. And then the second one was in Conesville, Ohio, where kids walk across the street to this church. This one's over 60% participation. We invented the pop-up classroom, a classroom that could be set up and torn down same day. So amazing things. So our first 2 schools went very, very well in those school districts. And then we were so excited. Struggling by God's grace in the people business. And this year, we grew somehow. We launched in 3 more schools. We launched in Payne, Ohio. These kids walk across the street to this church. This church has not had a kids ministry in over 2 decades. And they were right across the street from a school. They said, here, take our basement, paint it, renovate it. It's yours. And now they are hearing laughter and cheering. And it's reestablishing the connection from that church to the community for the greater good. Praise God for that. And then we also launched in Grover Hill. You see the silos in the background. A gentleman donated his detached garage. The community renovated it to an amazing facility. And they walk across the street there. This is the community where our founder and CEO was in the building in Christmas time. You saw the silos. This is Ohio, in rural. It's Christmas. And the teacher says, so who are Jesus's earthly parents? And over 20 kids, not a single hand went up to say Joseph and Mary. Christmas time. But yeah, and that's where it sunk in, that the biblical literacy is an issue. But guess what? Every single one of them know now who Joseph and Mary are, and they know much more than that by God's grace. Amen. And then finally, we launched in Pandora, Gilboa. They are now serving K through 12, and they introduced us to the Lifewise shuttle concept. They said, hey, we want our kids to ride a bus. And we were like, no, they have to walk. And they said, well, why? Well, we don't know. That's a great question. We can do the shuttle. And now almost 80% of our programs have a shuttle or a bus by God's grace. So we went into 2021, the year of multiplication, and we took a look at the numbers. And the asterisks there are the Van Wert programs. They became Lifewise. They linked arms with us. And we said, okay, there's some movement happening. We need to set a real goal to really make an impact. So we set a goal to be in 25 schools by the fall of 25. That's a year from now. 25 schools by the fall of 25. And again, because of people like you, by God's grace, we launched in 28 schools the very next year. And we hit 3 major milestones way ahead of schedule. Our first out-of-state program, which is in Ohio and Indiana, where I live, and then also inner city and suburban. And you might be going, well, why? What does that matter? If you're going to be plug and play and replicable, it needs to be for every environment. We discovered, even though we were in 36 schools, that if we kept growing at this rate, that we'd be in almost 1,000 schools within 5 years. So we said, let's round up. And we launched the first 1,000 schools campaign to be in 1,000 schools by the fall of 26, 2 years away. That's a big number. Okay, we were in 36 at the time. So how are we doing? We can see our growth, and these gray bars are indicators of where we need to be each year to stay on track. 22, 23, we need to be in 84 schools. That's almost a 50 school jump. By God's grace, we ended up in 133 schools across 4 states. Yeah, praise the Lord. That's not about us. And then this past school year that ended in May, we needed to be in 200 schools. We ended up in 331 schools. And yeah, that was in, by the way, spanning 13 states. And this year, we need to be in 400 schools. And I have outdated information. We are actually confirmed in over 620 schools across 31 states. Man. I mean, yeah. And you know, I love Lifewise Academy, but it's not about that name. I love bar graphs. I love Excel spreadsheets. I'm a straight up nerd. I love them. But I got to tell you, like, the reason this is important is for 2 things. Number one, you may not have seen a Lifewise near you. And I do have the Texas statistics if you want to talk about them during Q&A. You may not have seen one near you. That's the first reason. But more than that is the impact. Every single time that number goes up, I need you to understand something. Dozens and hundreds of kids are now touching a Bible for the first time. They are hearing that someone loves them for the first time. And the stories I could tell you, it's all about the impact. And what I love about True Texas is, like, let's do something. So I'm going to share a video with you. Victoria's going to make sure that
me a whole lot of something that my grandmother did. My grandmother started a Bible education program back in the 60s. And she taught for 4 decades. It started actually in preschool, actually in her living room with 10 kids, and that 10 grew to 20, that 20 grew to 30, and then eventually it moved to the church down the street. And she taught a lot of kids that went to the elementary school that my dad went to. And he actually came to faith in Jesus as a result. So my grandmother passed away in 2016, and the church where her funeral was held was packed. And I remember at one point, the pastor that was giving the sermon asked the question, if you came to faith in Jesus as a result of this Bible education program, would you please stand? And 2/3 of that church stood up. I remember in that moment telling God, yes. If ever something like this crosses my path, I'm going to be all in. And I'm a physician, so this is not in my wheelhouse. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a ministry. But I believe in this mission to reach the next generation with the gospel of Christ. So I have my grandmother's Bible, and in the margins are names of kids that attended class. And she would circle Bible verses and draw arrows to the kids' names. And now, as I'm the director, I write kids' names in my Bible. And I will circle Bible verses that I will pray over them. And I have seen the impact that one person can make when they have a heart to reach that next generation with the gospel. But with Lifewise, it's the whole community. And I can't wait to see what heaven's going to look like when we see the impact of.
She owns this, and she said yes. And she's a physician, right? And she said yes. And what I love about Lifewise is that everyone can serve a role. Some it's in the beginning, some it's in the middle, some it's at the end. You're not stuck forever doing something with Lifewise, right? You get to be involved in a lot of ways. Kind of like this gentleman, Zane Gross. Zane owns businesses. That's what he does in Ashland, Ohio. He's a business owner. He heard about Lifewise, and we had not even launched in a single school. And he said, can we get a group of people together for you to share with? We're like, yes, you can. And so we went and presented. And in that group was his pastor. And his pastor said, would you like to share with the Ministerial Association? We said, yes, we would. And which, by the way, quick side note, this is led by normal people. It's not led by pastors. It's just led by, not that they're not normal people, but you get my point. It's led just by us. And so we shared with that Ministerial Association. They kind of adopted Lifewise for Ashland. And now Ashland has a Lifewise in every single school. Now, why is that important? It's because of this. This little girl was not able to get her permission slip signed to go to Lifewise until 5th grade. She bothered her parents. They finally said yes. And then after being in Lifewise, she wanted to go to church. And her parents continued to say no. Well, finally, she was ending in 5th grade. She was going to be going to middle school. She's like, I'm going to be in 6th grade. There's a church on our street. Just let me walk. And they finally said yes. And she went and she got connected, saved, baptized, and is being discipled, part of the youth ministry. All to God's glory. And in the picture there, at her baptism, you see a Lifewise director, teacher, and some volunteers. But there's one person not in the picture. That's Zane Gross. He doesn't know her. He doesn't know the hundreds of kids in Ashland that are hearing about whose they are. He never will. He served his role up front. He connected us, and because of that, the shores of heaven have of the 50 million public school students in America. And people have always said that's not possible. And I got to admit, I get a little like, I don't know, that's a big, big goal. But check out this map. I mentioned 31 states. The red states are where we are currently live. The yellow states are where we are going live. It is confirmed that it's done deal. This tells us there is a pathway to give them all of it. Oh, and by the way, God doesn't see red. He He doesn't see blue. We're going live in Los Angeles. We're going live in New York. We're going live in multiple school districts in Colorado, Washington, Oregon. All right? His heart is for his children, and he is reaching all of them. So this is going to continue to spread regardless of the climate. All to his glory, not ours. All to his glory. So we're excited. Yeah. So we're very, very excited. So what will it take? Well, it takes a few things. Number one, prayer. The Bible says that unless God builds the house, the laborers labor in vain. And we're not going to be one of those. We are here for him and him alone. So we need prayer. Number two, volunteers. I showed you, Zane was a volunteer. He got us connected up front. That's what he did. And then other people are going to do different things. If you don't mind me saying, Jack, he is on a steering committee. That's a short-term commitment for Lifewise. So he's not going to be doing that forever. Joy is helping raise signatures for Lifewise and is signed up to be on the steering committee. Short-term things. There's a lot of different volunteer needs. Ambassadors, that's just a fancy word for, we're going to introduce you to this person and they're going to introduce you to that person. It's just all relational chains, right? And then finally, resources. God has been so faithful. And don't worry, I'm not asking you for resources. That's not part of what we do. God's been so faithful to take care of us. We're completely privately, funded. And when all that comes together, we end up having a live Lifewise program. And so I want to show you a little video that kind of what that looks like a little bit. Colin, I told him I did this to him. I'm like, look what I did to you, Colin. He's going to share a little bit of what I did, and then he's going to show you just.
The Lifewise program is adaptable to the specific needs of each school and community, so every program looks a little bit different. Transportation and classroom facilities vary from community to community. We're in Elida, Ohio. Behind me is the local Lifewise program. The community here took an old house and they renovated it, and you can see it is an absolutely beautiful facility. Currently, volunteers and teachers are inside prepping for the day. They're actually in the middle of a prayer meeting. When that's done, they're going to head over to the local elementary school and pick up students to have their first class for the day. Behind me is Elida Elementary School. You can actually see the volunteers getting the students ready. They're going to get them on this Lifewise shuttle, and then in a moment, they're actually going to bus them over to the Lifewise facility where those volunteers will take them inside. Teachers will take students. It's about a 40-minute Bible-based character education class. They're going to learn about things like obedience and respect and truthfulness. They'll participate in singing activities, reading and writing.
The new name, does anybody remember? It starts with an I. That's a hard question. It was a long time ago.
And then when the classes are over, the volunteers are going to get them back on the shuttle, and then they're going to bus them back over to the local school where they will resume their normal daily activities. Let's join them. Hey guys, how are you? Good. You guys ready for Lifewise? Yeah. You can see the excitement of the students as they're getting ready to go over to the Lifewise class. You guys are excited, right? Each week, 376 Elida students participate in the Lifewise program. That's nearly 60% of the entire elementary school student body. The program hosts 2 classrooms each day, 3 times a day, 5 days a week, so that every student participates once each week. The Lifewise curriculum walks the students through the entire Bible during their time in elementary school. Students will start in Genesis in 1st grade and end their time in Revelation in 5th grade. Each lesson teaches a Bible story, explains how it connects to the bigger picture story of Jesus and how God's love can transform our character. Lifewise programs like this are popping up all the time.
Why is that so important? So I'm going to take off my Lifewise hat for a second. This is where it gets dangerous, actually. And I'm just going to share my personal opinion. I believe that what we're experiencing as a country are symptoms. Symptoms of a much deeper issue. Children that grew up to be adults who don't know Jesus. That's what that is. I just believe that with everything in me. And so the Bible says children are like arrows in the hands of a warrior. And yes, it says, and he who has a quiver full is blessed. And everyone's like, yes, we have a lot of kids. Well, my thought is, why arrows? Why did they say bricks in the hands of a mason? Or figs in the hands of a fig gatherer, like, or whatever. It's because we are fashioning these young people, and they are going to point at something in their life. And guess who else knows that truth? The enemy. And so the enemy for decades has been fashioning our youth. And guess who defines the culture? The people, the adults. And they're adults now. And right now, on the playgrounds, even younger than Zoe here, is the first post-Christian generation in American history. Every generation in American history is identified as majority Christian. Whether or not they actually are isn't up to me to worry about. The very first one where the majority has no association with God, no association with Jesus as God, is alive on American soil. And it's not even their fault. And so the Lord needs to get to their hearts because the enemy is working overtime to destroy their worldview so that they grow up and define our culture again. So what are we going to do about it? I've never heard of anything like this. And for the first time, these kids that never knew know who he is. It's going to change their lives. And so we have a 10-step launch process that we walk through. Every community, I'm going to try to save a little time for questions. Every community, every school district, think of school district, we need at least 50 people to sign the list for that. You're not signing to be spammed. You're not signing to do it. And they go to different churches. So it's kind of like if I go to ABC church and Monica goes XYZ church and Zane goes to 123 church. We're 3 different people from 3 different churches, and we're going to work together, and we're just going to do some very basic planning, not super detailed stuff. It's going to last a few months, and we're going to meet either once a week or twice a month virtually with a Lifewise person. So it's that simple. We need those people. And that is what it's going to take. So again, I would encourage you to write that down. I mean, I can't think of anything more important than the next generation receiving the gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen. And the ripple effect that will cause. And I'll leave you with 2 stories, and then we're going to answer questions. Maybe just one. But I was telling someone earlier, there's a 4th grade girl who's attending Lifewise, and her 2 best friends cannot get their permission slip signed. So once a week after Lifewise at recess, they met up, and she said, "Do you want to hear about what I'm learning?" And they said yes, and she began teaching them. Now this 4th grade girl, every week, is teaching over 30 kids who cannot get their permission slip signed the Bible stories, the connection to Jesus, every week. If that doesn't give you chills, a 4th grade girl, yeah, that's awesome. And so the ripple impact, we cannot quantify the impact that one life change has for Jesus, or that change will have for Jesus and for others until we're on the shores of heaven together. So I don't know how much time I have. We have 18 minutes until the meeting's over. I'm going to stick around as long as I need to answer questions. But if we have a little time for questions, I can answer them now for you.
Do you have a plan when you go in and talk to the school district?
Absolutely. So in the big brochures, there's a 10-step launch plan. On step number 6 is when we're going to meet with the superintendent. Someone from that local steering committee that I mentioned is going to be there. We're going to be there virtually. And why do we do that in step 6 out of 10 and not earlier? Well, they went anyway. It's state law. So we just kind of let them know what we're going to do or what the people are going to do. So yeah, we meet with them in step 6 and give them a whole plan of action. It's a very good looking plan.
I have lots of questions.
Fire away.
Okay, so are the buses you all going to y'all because they're paying Lifeway, or are we responsible for getting our own shuttle bus?
We don't require that any program has a shuttle or a bus, and we don't sell them either. So the steering committee, again, is going to pick, like, well, let's start with this school, and there's a church right next door. No, we happen to know the pastor. And so a lot of times the kids will walk. And so they decide, because they control their budget, they decide what they want to fundraise for. And I'll tell you something pretty neat that we didn't see coming. So about 80% of our programs are right next door to a church. But now about 80% of our programs have buses. We started wondering why. Why would you spend the money on buses? Well, apparently all the directors think with a hive mind in a much smarter way than what I do, because I've talked to multiple of them and they said it's because we've raised 10 times the cost of that just by having the bus. We park it at Christian businesses. We put it in the local parade. We have it at like here and there, and it just raises funds like crazy. And I'm going, I was like, yep, marketing. That's why I'm not a director, because I wouldn't have thought of that. And they have the faith to go, let's just buy the bus and do it. So it's been interesting to watch.
Okay, I have one other question. Do you start with elementary or high school or either or?
Great question. So that steering committee, they're going to get to decide where they want to start. Middle school, high school, because we don't know your school districts. We don't know the community, right? You guys do. So you get to decide how you want to make it look. We're always there. We never leave. The community is always assigned a person and all the resources and all this stuff, all that. I will say, though, we do recommend elementary school. There's two reasons. One is a practical reason. When we're in a school, our participation rates, our elementary, are very, very high. So then when they go into middle school, they've already had the program, and they're like, where's Lifewise? And it just leads to, it's the funnel effect. Second, though, is even more important, it's spiritual. Who's heard of the Barna Group, the Christian statistician? Yeah, the stats show us that when a child hears the gospel in a very real way, from the ages of 4 to 13, they have about 40% of the time they truly follow Jesus. When they hear the gospel, it's all good. Every program is different because every school is different. There's some communities like that have one elementary school, one middle, one high school, and they only have like a few hundred kids. So they'll have different needs than ones that are big. Van Wert, they are running 2 classrooms, but they're running pretty much 5 days a week. Not full time, but multiple classes a day. And it tailors itself to whatever the school district needs because we are here to serve. We're not going to do it before or after. We're going to do it during, but they're going to tell us where we fit in best. And usually we become a specials. Have you heard of specials? It's non-graded academic classes for elementary. Art, library, gym, music, stuff like that. We actually become one of those for the school. And so they're going to tell us where we fit in and we'll stay static on that day. And then it'll be the growth of the program that decides. But typically, I'd say on average, at least 2 probably classrooms is what's rotating at most places because of the high percentage of participation. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
I used to drive our church bus for when my son was in the youth group back in 20 years or so ago. And even in our small town, it was about like what you said, one school, one middle, one high school, 2 or 3 churches. We would have kids that would say, drive past my house about a block in the park. I'll come get on it there because I can't go if my parents see the bus.
Yeah, there is a need. And listen, I'm going to tell you, so I was in a little place called Harlingen 2 days ago. and way down south in Texas here. And they had about 24 signatures. They were halfway there for their school district. That's an honor. In my school district, we just got done and we hired our director. And it was short. It was sweet. It's pretty basic stuff. So I'd really encourage you to at least take a picture of that and then see what you can do to be part of it.
Can you cover what the steering committee is going to do, or is that in the book?
Well, if you go to lifewise.org/steering committee, they're going to do essentially a few things. 1, what school do we want to start in? 2, we have to secure a host location for them to go to.
I already got that.
Well, you're 2 down.
You're on the steering committee.
3.
Let's go.
3, we're going to, how do we raise some signatures? So as you see, most of them are passive, right? 4, let's do what we call asset mapping. That's fancy word for let's make a list of people we think could be a good director. We're not going to approach them yet, but who might be a good director in our school district? And then the last thing is after all that's done, that's it. Those 4 things. They're then going to set the meeting with the super. 1 person will go or 2. We'll be there. We present. We get the yes. We get yeses 93% of the time. 93. Now, I'm always transparent. Sometimes that 93% part of it can be 6 months or 8 months. The super's kicking the can down the road. I have no idea. Sometimes I know of a program that took 3 years. The steering committee stayed together. But they're doing it for the sake of their kids. But the overwhelming majority of them are really quick. And then after that presentation, the last thing they're going to do is hire the director. We're gonna interview them. The steering committee's going to interview them, and we're hiring one of the local people you recommended. So that's it. That's what they do. Yes, ma'am.
What is the law in Texas? Do you know? Is it
None.
yes? No law?
No.
No law against it?
None. There's no law.
Okay.
Unless we comb through it, which we have discovered that it has to, like we found a few states recently where it wasn't under where we thought it would be, and we started combing through and found that, oh, it is mandatory for these states. It's just in this other area. So unless that's the case in Texas, currently I believe you guys have no law that supports the Supreme Court ruling. But you still have the Supreme Court ruling. So, and yeah.
So there is a vetting process then that y'all have?
For the steering committee?
Yeah, for anybody that's...
Yeah, so we're going to vet everyone who applies for the steering committee, for sure. We're going to vet the director. We take it very seriously. We are not going to allow false religions to making sure the program's going well. It's built into our process. And in the state of Texas, just so you know, we have 4 school districts going live this year, or scheduled to go live, I must say. We have 9 that have presented or are presenting to a superintendent. We have 6 school districts that have steering committees and are drafting plans. And then we have 12 that are in the process of forming steering committees to begin planning. And then we have 156 that have signatures. These are school districts on the community interest list, working their way along the path. So Texas is heating up, and we're expecting big things from Texas. So we hope to see that.
I'd like to make one more comment. This is by far the most encouraging thing that I have heard, I think, really since I started participating in all this amount 4 years ago.
That's praise God, you know. Praise God.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, thank you, Jesus. And then so, it's an honor to be able to share. It's an absolute privilege. I can't believe I get to do, this isn't all I do, but I can't believe that I get to share with people like you, because this is your volunteerism. This is your time. And you guys hold it precious. And the fact that any of you would consider participating in what we're trying to do for these kids is an honor. So very grateful. And so grateful for Olivia Fitzgerald, who connected with me. Well,
that's fine. I'm sure it's back there too.
Yes.
So the way I first heard about this, someone just randomly sent me a text and asked me if I would sign up for it. And so I did. And then I left it because I was doing other things and didn't know much about it. But if you actually go to their website, you can watch a bunch of YouTubes about it. Really engaging and entertaining. But we could be the catalyst here for, think about how many communities are represented tonight. And of course, having someone on the state level too, to push that out. And it's literally just a text, an email, sharing the videos online that show the work that's being done. Because every time we leave one of these meetings, we always want an action item. Well, number one, of course, Hood County, we want to do the steering committee tonight, at least 2. I think we've got 2 members, right?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That's Darla Lubin.
Amen.
Yes, and Zane Nash. And that's fantastic. And 2 different churches are represented there. And then we'll find another one, and anybody else. But you can literally go to their website right now. And if your school district is not listed, or how does that work?
Your school district will be listed. That we guarantee. You can look it up by zip code or by name. I would recommend zip code.
Okay.
It pulls it right up.
Okay.
And then you're able to sign. And then for the steering committee, lifewise.org/steering committee. A lot of E's in there. I still don't know if I can spell it right, but
yeah.
I can help you out with that too.
So I was going to tell you, when I got involved with the school board here, I began to look at their policy, and they have a policy called EHAA, and it's their accreditation policy. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What do they say a good school looks like? And if you look at it all across the state of Texas, you can go to any ISD in Texas on their website, Granbury ISD, Keller ISD, Southlake ISD, Harlingen, and you go to that EHAA policy, and when you look at it, I think it's number 7 says they are to teach the Old and New Testament and its impact on history. And I'm pretty sure there is a law that says it's mandated to teach it in Texas, but they don't do it.
They offered it, it did not go over, so they pulled it from the video.
Well, what they'll do is they'll say, oh, well, we'll have a high school credit class, and if the kid wants to take it, they've got it. But really, the way it's written, you can read it either way. The way I read it, of course, I'm going to read it the way I think it should be, is that they're supposed to do it. So the way I see it, there's freedom to teach it from kindergarten all the way up. And I was thinking even you're not leading them to the altar. You may or may not be praying with them, because I didn't think that was what you could do. But that's
changed. we're also seeing a movement about the Old Testament, New Testament. The state superintendent in Oklahoma said that the Bible must be taught as a foundational book, but they're not teaching about Jesus and Moses and stuff like that. But still, it is a fundamental part of our landscape. I mean, we were founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs. Come on. And so the amazing fact that state laws and new things are being introduced, I'm telling you, God is certainly on the move, and all of His Scripture is true. And the harvest is plenty, and He's raising up those that are willing to do it. So state laws are changing. You know that about Texas. I'd pursue that for sure. Imagine what's going to happen when all these things come together and impact every area of a child's life. They're just going to have a different worldview, and they're going to change the world.
Well, and really, we will be held accountable, especially if we know Jesus, because I mean, the way that He talks about the fact that the way that we could be harming children, it'd be better for us to have a millstone around our neck. Mm-hmm. That's pretty, sobering to think about. That's His perspective. He cares for the kids so much that if we do not get involved and care for these kids, we are complicit.
Yeah, and when a child hears the gospel, the very worst that's going to happen, in my opinion, is that they will not follow Him, but they will be haunted by the thoughts. Because there's always that whisper that says, I could be living another way.
And they'll get to make a decision if there's a choice.
Best case scenario, they end up being like a Monica, or like a Hughes, people who love Jesus and live it out. Right. And so they deserve the right.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any feedback from the schools that have been doing this a while about other changes that they're noticing? I mean, I imagine there'd be a reduction in dropouts and so forth.
That's a good question. So you're talking about hardcore. I don't want to go over. I mean,
You're fine.
So
I think we're okay.
These are outcome measurements. So it's like a business product, right? How do we know your product is doing what you say it does? You do business outcome measurements. We actually had a donor that came and said, hey, we want to do outcome measurements on you when we were only less than 4 years in. And we're going, can we wait until we're like at least 10 years in? And it's on our website. If you just scroll down, you can have the full report for free. This is an independent, non-Christian organization, Thomas P. Miller out of Indianapolis, and what that means. They've known this forever. These are journals from California from decades ago and the East Coast from decades ago that when religion is introduced to a child at a young age, the academic achievement gap goes down by over 50%. The suicide rate goes down by over 80%. Wow. Family and social engagement goes up. Those journals have nothing to do with us. But now we're seeing the same things happen. And we're also, and we just had a pastor tell us that my congregation has gone up by over 20% since I started hosting Lifewise. Vacation Bible School, maybe not on steroids, but has gone up by over 45%. Yeah, the changes are real because Jesus is real and he changes lives. So check that out. It's all on the report. We also in the school teaching Lifewise. We're asking all the educators, and the results are overwhelming. And America wants it in general. If you check out our website, I think it's 56% of Americans think the Bible should be taught. And then I think over 75%, I'm misquoting this, believe that moral and character-based education should be happening. Real changes.
I love what you said earlier whenever I was educating you about communities and schools, which I just found out from Monica, how disturbing this is. And they started about the same time as Lifewise. And they you look at their website, it looks really good. They want to get into the schools and help the kids and everything. But there's other stuff in the manual that whenever you really get into it, you find out that they're all about the woke stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's
to remember, they think they're doing, what is right. We just know, I'm being careful with my words. We just know that,
sorry about that.
No, we know the truth that Jesus is the one that brings character to life. And that's the case. And so when you have organizations like that, they are building a worldview for these children. And if there is not the option to have the Jesus worldview, they only grow up with this one.
That's right.
And they're going to grow up, and that's that. And Satan, we cannot underestimate him. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
And he does that through the worldview first. and then he just ravages you in any way possible. He can make you rich, and he's owned your life. He could destroy you in other ways, he's owned your life. We have to at least let them know about Jesus so that in the worst case scenario, they have competing worldviews that they have to reconcile as they're an adult, the knowing choosing of one or the other. And that's what I meant earlier by he haunts you. It's not a negative thing, it's just you have to choose.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's why, because I have compassion on people, and the Lord has saved me. He's redeemed me from maybe my normal sin, we want to call it. But I was no better.
Yeah.
And I deserved everything I deserved.
Right.
And yet this God loved me enough. Out of 8 billion people, out of only 5% of the entire universe we've discovered, he cares about me.
Right.
What kind of God with all the power in the world would ever care about me?
Yeah.
And he does. And he's after them too.
Right.
He wants their hearts.
And I agree.
And so we can, imagine what this country will look like again in the future.
Amen.
Yeah.
How, I guess I'm missing something there.
We've sometimes they have their specials all rotate, those non-graded classes, and they'll keep us static on like a Wednesday, so their kids will miss a little bit of every one. We've seen it. We have some that they have 4 specials that are static Monday through Thursday, and on Friday they just do a constant rotation of those 4, and we'll be on Friday, so the kids don't miss any. We've seen a lot of different models, but we're here to serve, so they'll tell us where we fit in. But no academic time is missed.
That was, because I would assume that would be your superintendent's first question. Well,
Right.
what class do you want me to take out of your kids' curriculum?
Yeah, middle and high school, it's an elective. The other one, we're a once a week, non-graded special, so they won't miss any academic time.
That's good. How is it funded?
How is it funded? Yeah, I was wondering because they didn't ask me either, and I actually just answered the question when I was in college. This is all locally funded. So the director is going to determine the budget. We recommend the director's paid, it's part-time. That the teacher's paid, it's part-time, but that is up to them. They have those 2 budget lines to consider. Then making the room look like a good educational facility. And then, they don't have to have a bus or any of that stuff. And so they do fundraising in the local community. We train them on how to fundraise. We're very good at it. And then also everything's plug and play. If you go to our site right now, you can sponsor a student for $30 a month for Granbury CISD, right? You just get 100 people to do that. It's like $36,000 a year just in that. They also do spring events that we give them everything they need. It's all written out, all the videos. It's beautiful. That raises a lot of money. We see them do other things like walks and